Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. I'm excited today to be joined by Nick Kirchhof of Metro State in Denver. Welcome, Coach.
Hey, thanks, Matt. I really appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it because I'm not familiar with Metro State, so this should be interesting.
Cool.
So let's start off just talk about recruiting. When are you starting to hear from players? When are you starting to look at players? Like what year in high school?
Yeah, so I think we're a Division II school located here in Denver, Colorado, in the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference. I've been on the Division I side of things and then at Division II as well. And so I think for us, Division II, our recruiting is a little bit based on kind of Division I. Usually Division I kind of has first pick of some of the players, especially out of state for us and out of the region. And so we can generally start a little bit later. Now that being said, this previous class, we had a lot of guys that we really liked here locally. And so we kind of are ahead of the game for, I guess, like 2022 recruiting. And so right about this time, kind of April, we'll be starting to kick off our recruiting for the 2023 class. Now that could be based on this year. Sometimes we could go a little bit later, sometimes a little bit earlier. It is a little bit flexible there. But in general, we can kind of wait a little bit longer and not have to identify kids as young, which for me as a coach is nice because we kind of have a better idea of what you're going to be coming in as when you're a senior going into your freshman year. Whereas other places I've been, we've had to look at guys even as sophomore years because of a variety of academic factors. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, how many inbound contacts do you think you get in a given week? Now I know it's going to fluctuate with tournament season and things like that, but just kind of
Right.
an average number. What do you think you're getting?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's pretty consistent. I mean, I would say per week, easily 100 emails. Obviously, yeah, around the big showcases, it does ramp up. I do think that being in Denver, and I think Colorado and Denver kind of being a new and growing city, I feel like there's more interest than may have been in the past, and a lot of people like to come here vacation. It's fun to be here year round because you've got the great outdoors, but then also the city life too. We're about an hour from the mountains, so there's not too many places in the country where you can be in a city urban environment and then be almost looking across the street at our neighbors, and you got the mountains and the foothills. So I'm a little biased. I grew up here, but I do think it's a pretty awesome place.
No, I can understand that. So what are some of the first things you like to see in that first contact from a recruit?
Yeah, I think in general, just key information, right? Graduation year, positions, GPA. Luckily here we're a little bit flexible academically. We've got a wide variety of students, and so I think academics isn't the first thing we have to look at, but it definitely plays a role. I'd say in general, I like to recruit students that are above a 3.0 just because they're generally students that can handle the travel of playing, competitive travel soccer, as well as keeping on top of their academics. With some of these higher leagues where they're traveling in region or nationally to play, it really does mimic the college kind of environment. And so, that's a key, I think, one for me. It's just making sure that you're a solid student, that you can balance your time, and then hopefully, obviously, you're playing at the highest level you can push yourself to play at.
So on that note, if you're out at a tournament or whatever IDing players, what is that, checklist of yours, besides the academic side, either on the field or off the field characteristics? What is it that you're looking for in a player?
Yeah, I think we're big on making sure people are hardworking, that they're relentless, that they're willing to improve. And so I like to watch players when things aren't going right for their team and see how they respond. I like players that have mental toughness, grit. May not always be the fanciest player, but the ones that are willing to push themselves and grow. Once they get into our environment, we try and prepare them as much as possible. I'm not a used car salesman. I like to tell it how it is, so that there's no miscommunications about what we're signing up for, both on my end and the player's end. Once you get in here into the program, it's super important that you're coachable, for Division II soccer and where we're at, we get a week, maybe 2 weeks before school starts, and then we're playing games for the fall season. So how you prepare, how you work up to that point is super important. Some of the position specific, kind of characteristics, we'll play in a kind of a 4-4-2 kind of system. And so I like wide guys that are fast, that want to beat people, 1v1, center mids that can cover ground, that are more complete players, back four guys that are organized, great 1v1 defenders and can pass the ball. And then, for us, I want to find strikers that want to score goals. I think a lot of times now in this days of soccer, striker stands up there by himself and faces backwards and isn't really part of scoring. And so I want guys who are desperate to score goals, who want to score. And I think playing in that kind of 4-4-2 system gives you that flexibility, working with a strike partner. I was an attack-minded player, and so that's what I want to bring into my teams as well.
Oh, fair enough. No false nines at Metro State, I see.
Okay, no, right. I don't think so.
All right. Well, when you're out recruiting, what are the tournaments that you like to go to, or the places that you like to see players?
Yeah, I think mainly regional events. We're a state school here, and so we actually basically have a scholarship type of program called the WUI, the Western Undergrad Exchange. And so what that is an agreement amongst Western states that instead of having to pay full out-of-state tuition, you get a reduced cost. And so, right now that knocks off around $9,000 to $10,000 off tuition right off the bat. I also think we're fortunate to live in a region that's really high-level soccer. Throughout my time, I've kind of spent all of my coaching career in the Western region. And so I've got great contacts in, California, Washington, Arizona, Colorado. And it's also is a little bit cheaper for those students as well. So the majority of our recruiting will always be there. ECNL events, MLS Next. There's some other events coming up too locally that are just quality tournaments, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, and even Washington. And so we'll really try hard to make it out to as many of those as possible. With the advancement of the transfer portal and things like that, MSU Denver is a very transfer, I guess, supportive university. We have a lot of transfers come in, and so it's another opportunity. We know, we want guys to be here for 4 years and try and work with them as long as possible. But we know that sometimes things don't work out. And so we're always willing to look at guys to transfer in potentially. And then we also have a graduate program too. So we actually have a goalkeeper who's doing an MBA currently. So I think what's great for me is we have flexibility to bring in a wide variety of student athletes from a variety of different backgrounds and different even timings of their life. And so for that, I really like this university in this place because it is very accessible to anyone and everyone, really.
And on that, I checked your roster. You got a couple international players, but I would say for an average Division II, you're actually fairly domestic in basis. So how does the international thing fit in for you guys?
Yeah, we do have the opportunity to recruit international students. I think everyone has their own thoughts on whether to do it and how to do it. I think for me, the majority of our team will always be American-based players. I think that we can recruit and find some of those top players definitely in this region and across the country. But if there are special players that are foreign that we think can make an impact in the program, we'll look at it and consider it. I've been fortunate that when I played in this conference, we had a couple special foreign guys, and that helped us to some great success. At a previous institution, we had a lot of success without having a single foreign player. So I think for us, we want to get out and about, and I also like to see players in person as much as possible. And so I think recruiting from video, things like that won't ever be where we do the majority of our recruiting. It'll be in person at events, trying to get people to come to campus, because what we want to do is have somebody here their whole 4 years or as much as possible. And I think sometimes when you recruit some of the foreign players, they can be using a Division II school as a kind of a stepping stone to get to somewhere else. I do think because we have a great location and a good city environment that generally guys are wanting to stay here, which is awesome.
Well, you mentioned, getting them on campus and that sort of thing. So how do camps fit into your recruiting,
Yeah.
recruiting system?
Yeah, so we run a couple kind of smaller ID camps, generally cap it at about 60 field players, maybe 10 goalkeepers. Um, it's not a huge money maker for us. I want to use it as a good recruiting tool. Now, obviously, some of that money goes to supplement our assistants and a little bit of the program. But for me, I want to identify great players from around the country, try and get the best local Colorado domestic players to come to our camp as well. And guys that we've seen a lot, hopefully then we see them competing against other guys in the region and we can get a better feel for kind of where they're at level wise. Generally we'll do about 2 during the summer, usually June and July. We're fortunate that we're actually going to be having our field redone and completely brand new turf installed. And so this past year we did one camp in January, and then we're going to do another one in May. And we usually like to kick those off as an opportunity for the next recruiting class to kind of start building that pool of players, but then also as an opportunity for guys who may be late in the process, they could potentially come in and make the team. We've only been here for a year, but we've actually brought in, I think, 5 to 6 guys that did come to camp. And, most of the time we had kind of identified them at camp or before camp, but camp sold us on them. So for us, it's more intimate, I guess, closer. We have our guys work it. We want them to, I know the players don't always ask me all the questions that they want to know. And so we make sure to have a lot of players around, and I encourage the campers to go and chat to them and figure out what it's really like, because they'll tell them the truth, especially when I'm not around.
Right. Well, let's switch gears, talk about MSU itself. I can spend time on the website and learn, all the numbers and majors and all that kind of stuff. But, what are some things that are awesome about your school that I'm not going to learn just by clicking through the website?
Yeah. I think we truly do have a great environment. What's a little bit unique here is that we're an urban campus. You walk across the street and you're in downtown Denver, which I think is awesome when it comes to opportunities for internships and potential jobs. I think one of the statistics that I've kind of held on to is that 95% of the students that go to MSU Denver end up staying in Colorado or the metro area. And so, the opportunity to make those connections and then hopefully have those go further on into career and things like that is a huge one. Also a little unique is we actually, on our campus, we have 3 schools. So we have MSU Denver, we have the Community College of Denver, and then we have CU Denver. And so, we're the only ones with athletics. So all the athletics facilities are all owned by us. But you do get to interact with other students, So on campus at any time, I think there could be over 20,000 people potentially. But it's not overwhelming. We don't have any courses that are the giant stadium classes like some of the bigger universities. They're generally real professors teaching the courses instead of, graduate students or TAs. And it's not a large campus. So, to walk from one side to the other, it's about 15 minutes. And so, for me, I think you kind of get the best of both of being in a smaller environment when it comes to learning, but then when it comes to your just general classes and meeting people, you get to meet a variety of different people from a variety of backgrounds.
Oh, that's great.
I think our business program is probably our most well-known. It has an accreditation that only like 5% of business schools do in the world or country. I can't remember, but it's definitely kind of a bigger program for us. And then we actually have an awesome aviation program. So you could get your pilot's license and go through school here and do all of that. And so we've got flight simulators here on campus, which is pretty cool. And just a little bit unique. I actually had a couple friends growing up that came here and they're now pilots. So just a little different than some other places.
Yeah, no, that is cool. Well, you talked about making sure you're trying to recruit students with at least a 3.0 GPA. It is student athlete, right? So how,
Yeah.
how specifically at your school do your players balance those commitments between their studies and their sport?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think what we try to do is keep everyone on a path so that they can graduate in 4 years. So that means, taking 15 credits per semester, or 30 total for the year. Generally, we like to recommend to the student athletes that they take a lighter coursework during the fall season when we're playing and competing and traveling, and then maybe take some of the more time consuming or tougher courses during the springtime. What I think we're super fortunate to have is a assistant athletic director that's specific to academics. He's awesome. He comes from a sport background. He's a former UCLA football player, so he's not just an academic. He's a student athlete that came from that space, and so he's a tremendous resource. Already he helps organizing classes, checking in with professors. We get progress reports pretty much monthly, which I think is fantastic. We can set them up with tutoring, all sorts of things. And so, for us, it is part of being a student athlete here. And so if you're not taking care of the academic side of things, then you don't get to participate in the sport side. And so, I'm not a big fan of doing mandatory study hall or anything like that, unless you show that you may need it. And so currently we only have a couple guys that are in that extra kind of tutoring study hall area. But because of that, they're doing a lot better this semester, which is fantastic. The mass majority of our team, though, had over a 3.5 GPA.
Oh, great.
And I think we had 6 or 7 guys with a 4.0, which was fantastic. So, it's part of being here. It's part of doing what we want to do. I want you to have a choice after you leave MSU Denver that hopefully you can continue playing for as long as possible. But if not, you have a fantastic degree to go out into the workforce with. And so having that option when you finish school is super important to us in our program.
Earlier you mentioned, the travel, and it looks like, if I'm not mistaken, your conference has a pretty big footprint
Yeah.
there in the West. So, how much do you normally travel, and how does that factor into, the players' course loads?
Yeah, I think we're super fortunate based on where we are in our conference. Because we're in the metro area, I think there's 5 schools that are all very close by, a couple just across town, the furthest being maybe 2 hours away. And so when it comes to like those big weekend travel trips, we actually don't have too many. This upcoming year, we'll play in Utah, and then, we'll fly out there, play, probably drive halfway, play another opponent, and then drive the halfway back. So breaks up the trip pretty easily. And then we do have one kind of another outlier team in South Dakota that we'll go play this year. Each year it'll rotate whether we play a team home or away, because we have 11 teams total. You play 10 conference games. In region, it's kind of nice. Our region is basically Colorado, Texas, and everything west. And so, last year we went down to Texas and played. We played out of region and played a couple teams in Kansas. In the future, we'll play teams from California, the Pacific Northwest, and Texas each year. And that'll also vary whether it's home or away. So this upcoming year, we actually have all home games out of region, which is nice. In the future, it'll usually be, 1 weekend or 2 weekends home, and then 1 or 2 weekends away before we kind of start the conference piece. So, when it comes to travel, I think it's very manageable. And then the only other thing I didn't add in was, the mass majority of our classes are really only scheduled Monday through Thursday. So generally we play games on a Friday and then a Sunday. So it's kind of nice on a weekend when we're playing games, you're not having to worry about school usually on a Friday or anything like that. And then when we are traveling, generally we'll travel later in the day on a Thursday. So you're really not missing too much potentially.
So then, with that being said, what does like a typical day, look like during the season, from when they wake up to going to bed?
Yeah. So, we're fortunate. We have a soccer specific facility. So no extra lines on it. We only have to share it with women's soccer. So women's soccer generally train in the early morning. We train 2:30 to 3:30. I'm sorry, 2:30 to 4:30 in the afternoons. And so, generally guys can take their classes pretty much from 9 until about, usually the classes finish the latest around 1:45. Then it's opportunity for them to come in. I like them to be in the locker room at least 30 minutes before, kind of decompressing, getting ready for training, being around all of your teammates and your buddies. Then they'll generally come out a little bit earlier, get rondos going. We have soccer, tennis nets. We even bought a tech ball table, which has been pretty cool. It's a little
Nice.
different
Yeah.
still. Yeah. And so we want them to enjoy being around here, being in the environment. Then we'll generally train 2:30 to 4:30, Tuesday through Thursday. Mondays are generally days off. Thursday is the lighter day where it's either a walkthrough or we're traveling. We play Friday, recover, do prep for the next opponent on Saturday, play Sunday, and kind of just rehearse that. Our season's pretty tight and condensed, where we pretty much open up playing games Labor Day weekend and then finish Halloween in general. After that, hopefully you get to play more games. We do have a conference tournament, and then hopefully potentially into the NCAA tournament.
Okay. Well, you mentioned that you like to generally play the 4-4-2 and what you're kind of looking for in there, but how else would you describe your style of coaching inside that team style of play?
Yeah, I mean, I think energetic, right? I love this game. I love college soccer specifically because it's one of those few times where you're 18 to 22 and you get to grow up together. You get to go through tough things together, and generally it's the first time people are out on their own. And so I really love the college environment because I think it brings more camaraderie and the opportunity to be part of something much bigger than yourself. You know, I think, this place is set up to be very successful with the facilities that we have, the options for different degrees and academic programs. And it's also very affordable when a time during, where higher academics is getting more and more costly. I think here at MSU Denver, we try and make sure that it's an affordable, accessible degree that's going to help you move into the career path right away. When it comes to the actual kind of ins and outs of coaching, I like to get to know people. I want to get to know you. We're not professional where it's clock in, clock out. Everyone has their own thing going on. I really want players to come in and be immersed in the culture and the environment. For us, we want to play at a high level. We want to be great in attacking and solid in defense. And so, I kind of usually describe it to recruits as I want to be balanced, but I want to be tough defensively to break down, but I want to score goals. I don't want to just be good at one thing or the other. And so for that, we have to be fit the type of way we want to play. We want to go up and down the field. We want to try and press opponents so that we dictate how they play or when they pass the ball. And I just am a firm believer in taking stuff into our control and kind of honoring the soccer gods and doing things the right way, because I feel like you get rewarded by doing those things. So sometimes people think 4-4-2 and they think defensive, or, they just hit it big. I just think we want to be prepared and ready for any kind of situation that's thrown at us.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. In terms of the makeup of the team, what is your ideal roster size? And does that affect how many recruits you're usually bringing in on a normal basis?
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, I think I got the job during the middle of COVID. So it was a bit strange. Timing wise, there were some guys that decided not to come back, period. Some guys that graduated. And so there was a lot of growing pains. I think now a year out, a little over a year out, we're in a great spot. We've got a good idea of where we're going. For us, roster size, I don't want to have a massive roster. We won't ever have like a JV team. We don't have to fill a certain amount of spots in order to get more funding, which I think is also, crucial and key. And so, top to bottom, I want my squad to be super competitive. With that, last year we carried a roster of only 24 guys with 3 goalkeepers. I think, in general, we probably want to be around that 30 range with 3 goalkeepers. So, roughly that amount of field players. I inherited a group that's really young right now. And we don't have as many upperclassmen. And so I've kind of had to bring in a variety of players, some guys that could contribute right away, some guys that we think can contribute in the future. Right now, I think our roster's at about 29, and we're looking to kind of finish up 2022 recruiting with maybe 1 to 2 more guys realistically.
Makes sense. Well, we're talking here in March, so it's the off season. So what does your typical off season program look like?
Yeah, I like to kind of talk to our guys and say it's kind of almost split into 3 segments. So you got the fall, which is the competitive. We're now finishing up kind of this winter period. So during that time, we get 8 hours of training per week. 4 of the hours are considered conditioning, so weight training, and we also do a lot of functional movement that's help building 1v1 defending motions. We're not just running up and down. It's really trying to get that good, sharp defending without the use of a soccer ball. And then for the other 4 hours, we get to use the ball. And so, each week we at least do one kind of thing where it's competing, where we play for a win. So the winning team, we have a chart in our locker room, they get to put the W up. That's been awesome. It's the first time I've implemented it here, and you got guys scoring goals in training and they're celebrating like their fall games, which is awesome. And so we always want to make sure this is a period where we're still growing and getting better. Obviously the weights are a huge part of that, making sure that we're not just getting big and bulky, but that we're preventing injury, extending range of motion, and getting hopefully a little bit quicker, a little bit stronger. And then, the soccer part, it's usually some smaller group, kind of more functional training. And then in next week, actually, we start our spring season, where we can play up to 5 dates of games, more regular training. How it's set up for us is we'll basically train Monday through Thursday and play almost all of our games on like a Friday evening, late afternoon. And we'll do that all the way up until school finishes at the end of April. And then the guys have finals and preparation for finals those first 2 weeks of May.
Okay. Well, we've covered a lot of ground here, but the last question, I like to just give you the blank slate. So what else didn't we cover, or that you'd like prospects, families, anybody to know about your school, your program, or anything?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I mean, I think, look, I think there's good programs across the country, across every division. And so what I would recommend to anyone looking to playing in college is go visit a variety of different programs, go see it in person as much as possible. Watching on TV can be helpful, but it doesn't really truly show the level of quality, the speed of play, and some of those kind of little things that you can miss. But go to campuses, go visit. I think for us, we're an incredibly competitive Division II conference. Where I was coming from in kind of Northern California, I would compare us to a lot of those smaller Division I schools. Here in Colorado, we only have 2 Division I schools, and they're both good programs. But we've got a variety of top Division II programs. And so, I think for me, my best piece of advice is go visit, go in person, attend a camp or 2 if you're very interested in their program, and really try and learn as much about it as possible, because this could be an incredible 4 years of your life, and you want to enjoy it as much as possible. For a lot of us, it's the last time we get to play at a super competitive level, before we told we're not good enough anymore. And it happens to all of us at some point, but for me, I'm just super excited about the direction this program's going. And can't thank you enough for giving small schools like us a little bit of a platform to sell ourselves. So really appreciate what you're doing, Matt, and hopefully you can continue doing this through the future too.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Nick. We wish you the best of luck in the fall and with your spring season coming up too. So appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully we'll connect again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Take care.